Now the question is, will the market buoyancy be there, Ridham, for the Indian investor to realize that this is yet another period which will pass through? Because the last 4 years have been different in that dips were bought into, people consistently stayed the course, right? This seems to be the current, now I'm talking about the present, the current seems to be the first one where people are actually a bit shaken up. I see that in conversations, we see that in our show that we do, a caller show for 1 hour, our call Ask Profit, wherein people are now questioning that should we even stop the SIP? I mean, this had never come before. How do you see this?
I'm sure you have tapes of your shows.
Yes.
Just check May 2022.
Okay.
Same thing had happened. Just 3 years ago, actually. So I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. Markets do not go up in a straight line. They're bound to produce some volatility from time to time. The genesis of this particular one, I think, was the slowdown in growth that happened largely because the government started consolidating its fiscal deficit. And the central bank continued to pursue, I would say, quote-unquote, hawkish policies. And that, I think, set the stage for a slowdown which has, I think, lasted for 2 quarters. In my view, we are already out of that slowdown. The budget was a phenomenal one. I have titled it a magic budget. It continues to consolidate the fisc, but at a much slower pace, only 40 basis points versus 120 in the trailing 12 months. It has increased capex share of GDP by another 20 basis points to another record high. And, of course, it has cut tax rates as well. So it has got an incredible combination for the economy. And at the same time, most importantly, the RBI pivoted. And the market has just ignored what I think is one of the biggest pivots in modern central banking history of India, where it has gone all out to convert liquidity into positive territory, cut interest rates, and taken the foot off the regulatory pedal. If credit growth doesn't accelerate from 11 back to 17, I'll be very surprised. So I mean, this is like, I am just amazed that people don't see this as an opportunity. In hindsight, they would realize it. It's impossible to catch the bottom. I don't know where the bottom is, but we didn't know during COVID as well. You have to buy stocks. They will go down maybe another 5-7% and you buy more. And I think you come out quite good. Now, are there some things to worry about? Of course, there are lots of things to worry about. But I'm not really worried about President Trump anymore. I think he's put his cards on the table and they look very benign. So this is nothing close to what we thought could be the worst case scenario. I think India has done a superb deal with America last week, which should result in much greater trade cooperation and military cooperation. 2 wars are ending. A third one is being taken off the table. The tariffs which were coming on China don't seem to be coming. So if anything, I think business sentiment in America seems very solid and improving. And it will soon turn in India as well. So my worry was that global growth slows down because of policy actions. And that worry is ebbing at the margin. So that was the biggest concern. And we will get lower oil prices, no wars, potentially lower interest rates in India, a slower pace of fiscal consolidation, a slew of tax cuts, a lot of tax reforms, and higher capital spending from the government.
Can't ask for more, are you saying?
Yeah, you know, I may sound like a broken record, but I am very bullish at these
this
prices.
is great to know, and I see both gentlemen smiling, so I'm going to ask them as well. But Ridham, I have a follow-up for you, which is a question that everybody is asking. Okay, FI वापस कब आएगा? Right? Everybody wants to know this.
देखो, in 2015, when the retail balance sheet started shifting, and by the way, it has not made such a big shift as people think. Trailing 10 years, in Indian households have still put more cash in their cupboards than cash into equities. They put more cash into gold than into equities. So we're still at the tip of the iceberg. We have really not traveled this journey. There are only two players in the market. It's either a domestic investor or a foreign investor. If every morning, even through this fall, at 9:15, if a $100 million bid is coming from domestic investors relentlessly, somebody has to sell. Otherwise, how do you get a trade? Even in the open outcry system, there was a trade and, there the market maker would go short. Somebody has to trade, right? Somebody has to sell. So unless the issuance cycle reemerges and the third player comes into the market, which is the corporate sector comes and offers stock, I don't think foreigners can come to buy. Now, a couple of things let me just say here is that when we look at emerging market portfolios, the underweight position of foreign investors is now to an all-time low. So they are more underweight on Indian stocks than they have ever been in the past. The last position was in 2007. The other thing that I would say is that India is hurting considerably because of its classification as an emerging market. The emerging market cohort is no longer the story that people dreamed about in the mid-90s. So it is unraveling, and a lot of assets in that cohort are shrinking, and India is facing some of that brunt as well. So it's important, if you ask me, I think India needs to diversify its sources of capital. We need to allow other pools of capital to walk into Indian stock markets, and that would then ensure more secular flows. But in the meanwhile, I think somewhere in the next few weeks or months, I think foreign investors will start coming back. India has considerably underperformed China. China is up 50%.
Yeah.
September 25th, and I have to say in hindsight, I underestimated the Chinese policy stimulus then. It seemed in the wrong direction, but it proved to be a bottom for the Chinese stocks and a top for the Indian stocks. And the relative chart now looks really juicy for India. So those who are waiting for India to get more attractive in valuation terms and in performance term, I think the moment has come. And one last point, I like to measure the Sensex in gold ounces. I've been doing that for 30 years. This is the cheapest the Sensex has been in gold ounces since November 2020.
Sorry, can you explain that?
How much Sensex can you buy with an ounce of gold?
Acha, okay, fine.
Okay. So this is the cheapest since November 20. It's like COVID.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So people like to measure the Sensex in earnings term, in INR terms, in dollar terms. I like to also measure it in terms of gold ounces. So
interesting.
This is the cheapest it has been in 4.5 years.